want us to go to...
The heart of their empire. The planet Viltrum.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Invincible Season 4, Episode 6 video. We have finally arrived at the Viltrumite War. There are a whole bunch of references and Easter eggs for the comics, so we will break it all down. We finally got to see Thragg get off his throne and start participating in the Viltrumite War. He is going to wreck the rest of the universe. The episode title was You Look Horrible, which is a reference to something the alternate timeline Eve told Mark after the Angstrom-Levy fight, but it's also something that they tell Mark after his Conquest fight, basically a reference to him not looking so hot, none the worse for wear, barely making it. The opening scene starts with Thaedus giving his big call to action to the rest of the coalition of planets to declare war against the Viltrumites. The Viltrumite War has begun, and they intercut this with Thragg's similar speech to the Viltrumites as they declare war on the coalition. Optimus Prime Thaedus is telling the coalition to roll out. There are many montages in this episode because the episode itself from start to finish takes place over the course of about 2 months while Mark is healing. We see them extracting the poison from the beetles, examining the Ragnars they got in the previous episode, all the things that Omni-Man helped them find that could hurt the Viltrumites. They remind you he still has the more powerful form of the Scourge virus should he need to use it, but he said that it would be a measure of last resort. Thragg then ends his speech to the Viltrumites reminding them of Argol's mantra, all is ours, as in the Viltrumites believe that everything in existence belongs to them. This will actually be a really important idea when Omni-Man is trying to explain the Viltrumites to Oliver and why Conquest, for instance, is so crazy. It's all because Conquest and most Viltrumites, pretty much all Viltrumites, are so dedicated to their empire and their belief system that was passed down by Argol and now Thragg, that they will unquestioningly do what Thragg tells them to do, no matter how heinous it is. So part of the idea as Omni-Man is trying to explain things to Oliver is that the Viltrumites do want to make the universe a better place, they just need the right leader to show them the way. They could actually be a force for good, they could use their power for good, they just need the right leader to do that. Thaedus also echoes this at the end of the episode too, when they say that they're going to go to the Viltrum home planet with the hope that if they can kill Thragg, then the rest of the Viltrumites will scatter and they can deal with them one at a time. So the real important thing for the Coalition is to kill Thragg. They don't need to kill all the Viltrumites right now, they just really need to deal with Thragg, and he is the most powerful Viltrumite in the universe. Probably one of the only bummers of the episode is that we don't get to see Thragg actually throw down with anyone during the episode. He mostly just sits in the sky and watches the battle go down. Do not worry, we still have 2 episodes left. We will see Thragg eventually throw down. During the first engagement in the war, we see one of the Viltrumites destroy a coalition ship by herself, just with her own body, which is meant to foreshadow Mark and Oliver doing the same thing to the Viltrumite ship at the end of the episode. You also notice that Thragg speaks to Argol's skull, claiming that he will not fail him. It's basically his most precious possession. He is obsessed with it. He speaks to it like this all the time.
To be with this skull sexually, or not to be with this skull sexually.
While the Viltrumite War is getting started between them and the Coalition, Omni-Man and Oliver watch over Mark while he heals. Then he also makes a proper grave for Conquest and a Viltrumite memorial. And at least the way that Omni-Man explains things to Oliver, the reason why Conquest deserves a proper Viltrumite burial is because he was so dedicated to his people, to his empire. It all just comes back to the idea that the person who was telling Conquest what to do and what to believe was wrong, which is Thragg. Looking back on his confessional to Mark about how all the other Viltrumites were afraid of him because he was so over the top and so crazy, you do kind of wonder if the Viltrumites did have a proper, like a really good leader, could Conquest ultimately be a force for good? You kind of wonder, like it's a really interesting question. It kind of feels like no matter who was telling him what to do, he would still be really crazy. But I think the idea is that Omni-Man just respects him for being so honorable per the Viltrumite traditions. You have to remember that Omni-Man is like the only person here between the 3 of them who was raised on Viltrum as a Viltrumite, so he understands Conquest in a way that they can't. This week they give Oliver the title treatment, wishing that Mark really was invincible so he would survive, which he does. It just takes him a little while, it takes him a couple months. While the episode is happening, we bounce back and forth between their storyline and the Viltrumite War storyline. So when we go back to the Viltrumite War, we actually find out what's happening with Alan in Tech Jacket. The ship that they're trapped on right now is headed to Glacia Prime, another system where the Coalition is going to be, so they're going to plan to bail as soon as they get there and make for the Coalition as fast as possible. They mostly use their storyline, at least at this part of the episode, for comedy with the video games they're playing. Tech Jacket also explains the games that her suit makes are brand new each time they play a game. It'll just on the fly make a brand new game. When we go back to Omni-Man and Oliver's storyline with Mark healing, they touch in on him every once in a while, but for the most part, they use this part of the episode, their story of the episode, for them to slowly bond, because at the beginning, Oliver still has all this pent-up resentment. He heard Omni-Man when he said that he thought that his mother on Thraxa was a mistake, so Oliver feels like he's a mistake too. Most of this is all right out of the comic book. They basically spend these couple of months slowly bonding over that time. Then Alan and Tech Jacket answer a question people have been asking for the last couple of weeks. When they make a break for the Coalition, Alan sacrifices himself to save Zoe. He's not powerful enough to defeat both of them, but she is able to return with Space Racer in tow. He absolutely wastes one of them with his gun, causing Lucan to run off. For the most part, I think you can assume that Space Racer was just going around the Coalition, helping them in minor skirmishes up until this point. And even though they don't really address it in this episode, it's been a while since they've actually touched on this. Each time Alan almost dies, he evolves, like his body just literally evolves into something more powerful, but it only works if he doesn't die, and he obviously would have died here had Space Racer not shown up.
This battle isn't over yet.
He takes Tech Jacket to Thaedus, and they reveal that they also found Battle Beast, so Michael Dorn, another Star Trek actor, comes back. Absolutely love their reunion too, like Alan is so happy to see him. How do you feel about war, which is basically the only thing that Battle Beast loves? If anybody in this episode is having any fun, Battle Beast is like the one person amongst all this that is just like really enjoying the Viltrumite War. Thaedus reveals that they are making progress in the war, but the Viltrumites are still way too strong, so they won't be able to defeat them until Omni-Man, Mark, and Oliver join them, and they're able to turn enough of the Viltrumite slave races against them. When we go back to Omni-Man and Oliver's storyline, he uses the Thraxan culture's way of living as an example of how he might be able to redeem himself, fix the mistakes of the past, and move forward, because that was their culture's whole idea. If it was possible that somebody could find a solution, that they would just move on no matter what happened. We get an even bigger montage of both the Viltrumite War and Mark healing as he slowly grows his beard out. We see a bunch more different planets through the Viltrumite War. Battle Beast wasting pretty much everybody that crosses his path. Then we go back to Thragg on Viltrum, and his readout shows that the Coalition has almost entirely turned the universe against them. Craig also explains that their team, the Super Beings team, have been able to defeat lone Viltrumites, but would not be able to defeat many of them fighting together, which is why they want to attack Telescria all at once. Thragg also wants to kill Thaedus to get revenge for Argyle. They don't really address it in this episode. We're supposed to get a big Thragg backstory episode next week to explain Thragg's relationship with Argyle and why he hates Thaedus so much for killing him. Thragg is not biologically related to Argyle. He's just like the most powerful Viltrumite that was raised from birth to believe everything that Argyle was teaching, which is why he became regent when Argyle was killed by Thaedus. So if you want to know how Thragg got that low taper fade, we're going to learn next week. When Oliver starts to have his conversation about being horny for the lobster in the tank at the restaurant back on Earth, it's meant to be a reference to something that happens to him in the future when he's older. Let's just say his kink is lobsters or things that look like lobsters. If you have read the comics, please don't spoil that in the comments below, but you can go read the comics right now. They were finished a long time ago, so you can find out what Oliver loves so much about lobsters. We will not kink shame here, no kink shaming. But Omni-Man does have a moment where he realizes he's got to give Oliver the speech about the birds and the bees. They return to their campsite to find that Mark has woken and went to check Conquest's grave, mistakenly thinking that the grave markers were actually for Omni-Man and Oliver, assuming that they had died because he couldn't find them when he passed out a long time ago.
Conquest.
You killed Conquest? No, you did.
They have to explain that it's actually Conquest's grave and Mark himself is the one who killed him. Who actually seems a little revealed and a little sad about it too, like he's sad that he killed someone, but also glad that Conquest is dead. We then go back to Thaedus as he's trying to rally everyone for another campaign even though they're so deep in the war, while Thragg and the other Viltrumites attack the planet because the planetary defense shield was taken down by one of the Data Twins. This time they have many Viltrumites. It's Thragg, Anissa, Craig, Lucan, and a couple other new ones that we haven't seen before. We finally get to see Thaedus throw down against Craig. We also see Anissa almost take down Tech Jacket until Mark shows up. And there's this weird moment where Alan is fighting Lucan, and Lucan yells at him saying another time, as if Lucan had made plans to fight Alan at some later date, and he has some busy task right now as part of their attack on Telescria. Like, no, I can't fight you. I'm busy fighting someone else right now. We will fight later. My assumption is that they'll pay that off in the finale. But now that Mark, Omni-Man, and Oliver have joined the Coalition forces on the planet, they have enough to actually fight back the Viltrumites. We get a real cool moment of Mark and Oliver flying through the Viltrumite ship, through Thragg's ship, destroying it, calling back to the beginning of the episode when a Viltrumite did that to a Coalition ship. Really pissing Thragg off, but it seems like he's more mad about almost losing Argyl's skull than he is about losing the ship, and then calls the rest of the Viltrumites to go back to the Viltrum Empire. Then the Coalition team use their powers to stop the ship from destroying more of the city when it falls, and discover the Data Twin was the mole and lowered the planet's defenses, allowing them to attack. And had been feeding Thragg information for years, assuming that they would eventually win, hoping that they would spare his life, which they probably would not. One of the bigger surprises, though, is probably that the headshot does not stop him, like his head is not a critical body part. But he does inform them the Viltrumites are rallying back at Viltrum, their home planet, and Thaedus believes that if they can kill Thragg, the rest of the Viltrumites will scatter and they can more easily deal with them one by one. So the idea now is that episode 7 will be the Thragg backstory episode with maybe like a couple other things from present day thrown in, but then episode 8 will be them arriving at Viltrum, and it'll be like their final battle of the Viltrumite War. Probably going to be a pretty high body count this season. They also used the post-credit scene this week for a really big joke on a lot of tropes of stories like this with big villains to play the Conquest reveal as a joke, wanting you to think that he's secretly still alive, playing ominous music as it zooms in on his grave, then stopping it short. So if it wasn't clear, this was just meant to be Robert Kirkman playing a joke on you. Conquest is perma-dead, and he stays dead in the comics. It actually winds up being a very big deal when Mark explains to Thragg and the other Viltrumites that he personally killed Conquest, impressing them quite a bit. So it's going to be really excited to see what happens when they arrive at Viltrum. Shit is really going to go down. Generally, it felt like a pretty small episode compared to some of the things they cover in other episodes, just because they blow so quickly through the actual Viltrumite War. Like, there's such a montage over 2 months worth of giant big battles and like a really big camping trip that Oliver goes on with his father Omni-Man while they're waiting for Mark to heal. I know a lot of people are still asking about what happened with Robot in Monster Girl. They're stuck in the Flaxen dimension. They might push that to like a tag scene at the end of the finale, then save most of their storyline for season 5, because they have like this giant epic adventure that happens in the Flaxen dimension, and because time moves so much more quickly, they wind up being stuck there for many, or like a very long time, even though not that much time passes in the regular dimension. It's a little bit like a John Carter of Mars type of story. It feels like that was the riff that Robert Kirkman was going for. So yes, there is a lot going on with their storyline. It just seems like there's so much that they just want to leave it for a future season, or maybe like a tag scene to remind you that they will do it in a future season. The other really big reason why they're not spending that much time on it this season, since they got stuck there, is because it doesn't have a lot to do with the actual Viltrumite War, and that is like the main A story this season. One of the big problems that Thaedus has now that they're on their way to Viltrum, to the Viltrumite home planet, is that even though the Coalition has overwhelming numbers and a really solid team of ringers, like they do have a lot of really powerful people on their team, there's still way too many Viltrumites who are way too powerful, way more than their combined forces. So it's one of those fight smarter, not harder situations. Like, they're not going to actually beat Thragg in a one-on-one fight, or all the Viltrumites if they fight together as one, which it seems like they will. As Thaedus said, their best chance is to find a way to disable or separate Thragg from the body of greater Viltrumites, and then the rest will all disperse, And even though it's still not easy for them to deal with the Viltrumites, with all them going after one at a time, just a single one at a time, it's still way more doable than trying to face all them at the same time.
Without their leader, the other Viltrumites will scatter, letting us deal with them one by one.
Really, the big solo match that they want to hype up is Thragg versus Thaedus. That's Thragg's whole thing. He wants to get the betrayer, and Thaedus really wants to get rid of Thragg. So Thaedus is going to make a beeline for Thragg, and Thragg is going to do the same thing, making a beeline for Thaedus. So if you're looking for like the real big fight card in the finale, it's the two of them. It's their fight. Viltrumite Optimus Prime versus Viltrumite Megatron. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references to the comics that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. But we are in the last couple of episodes, so just expect it to get way, way crazier as we go on. We only have a couple episodes left. My episode 7 video will post next week after they release it, based on the same schedule that I posted all my episode videos this past couple of days. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that stuff, just because we are eating good right now. It is the time of plenty. There are many, many big series on right now. Everybody click here for that episode 7 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other Invincible episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.